Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Angela Love-Zarenka with Lactation Education Resources, and we are honored to have you here to join us to discuss Nikki and Nikki Live, or actually, we're not discussing Nikki and Nikki Live, but we're going to talk about the COVID 411.
Thank you, Angela, the voice behind the curtain.
Yes.
All right, y'all, this is going to be a great one. Let's start with who we are. I am Nikisha Killings, private practice lactation consultant and perinatal equity strategist. I act as director of equity, belonging, and inclusion, not in that order. Equity, inclusion, and belonging for LER. Shout out to LER, our host today, making this platform available for us to share with you. And I am also co-good troublemaker with my co-host here today in our organization called Nikki and Nikki Lactation Career Consultants. Take it away, Nikki.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Nikki. Hello, everyone. I'm Nikki Hunter Greenaway, also known as Nurse Nikki. I'm a family nurse practitioner and a lactation consultant, and I am in New Orleans, Louisiana this week. Last time I was not. I was in Phoenix. I was on the road,
Yeah.
going from Los Angeles to New Orleans, driving. But
so
today
you made it.
I made it. I made it. And here we are. Today, let's check in first.
Let's do it. How are you?
I'm okay. It's getting really warm here in New Orleans, which means the humidity is like 100%, but it's not raining. So hence, like, we started like down here. We started, and then I'm just like, you know what? It's just it's molding itself. It's a whole mood. It's a whole mood.
It's a whole mood.
So,
We'll see if it's even, more shrunk by the end
right.
of our call here.
But I'm good. I am blessed and I'm healthy and everyone around me is healthy. So I'm good.
That is a blessing. I am okay. I'm looking forward to a 3-day weekend. I'll tell you that for anybody who gets that from work. We are expecting my parents to visit for the first time since we've lived here in a year. I think we lived here a year today. And so my parents will be visiting for the first time, and that's super exciting. And that relates to post COVID, our talk today. And so we're looking forward to it this weekend. We really hope it pans out because there's been a couple of false starts, a couple of they're coming and then they didn't. And so otherwise we are well. Everyone is healthy and well, and looking forward to summer, I think. Looking forward to kind of a shift in our pace.
Yes.
Hopefully, and moving forward. We want to hear from you, audience. How are you doing? Please check in. Angela will share anything that you chat to us, so we'll be aware of your input as well. What are we talking about today, Nikki?
Well, someone is talking about my hair in the chat. Thanks, guys.
Oh, nice.
And there are people from ATL, Western North Carolina.
Hey,
thank y'all for joining us today. Today we're talking about COVID. But here's the thing, like we wrapping this up. Like this is our wrap up. And we thought it was come full circle for us. You know, we started out in the heightened, in the anxiousness of it, and that has settled a little, but I think it's a different type of anxiety now because everyone was like, go inside, stay away, hermit. And now it's like you're crawling out of your little hole and you're like, is it safe?
Yeah.
I'm still not okay. You know, a lot of mask mandates have expired or been lifted, and people are like, I'm okay. I'm just going to keep my mask on because I don't really trust y'all because we've been in this a long time because of trust issues. So it really is I find it to be a different level of anxiety, especially in personally and professionally. Yeah, so we're going into COVID and seeing, coming full circle. We're gonna wrap this up because we're not talking about this no more. And we'll see how y'all are doing. Like vaccines are out, they're widely available, but in some places they may not be. So folks that are outside the United States, please tell us, what does that look like? Because as you know, America, we inward, we we don't really know what's happening.
We're focused only on us. Go ahead and say that. It is what it is.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
we are. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So as Nikki said, we started these shows back in February or March of 2020, and they were related directly to COVID. And we spent several months talking about COVID only before we branched out into other topics that you all found interesting and that were relevant. And we started out doing it was weekly COVID updates.
Oh, yes.
And it was intense and it was frequent, and there was a lot of fast moving pieces. A lot of changes were happening in real time, and we'd have to, check what the latest numbers were in our areas at the start of each call and report back. And we are happy that things have settled down tremendously. We're really happy to be in a place where we can be addressing COVID for the last time, not because it's gone, not because it may not flare up again in the fall with cold and flu season. Who knows?
Right.
But because we feel pretty confident that we've covered all that we need to cover. And there are a lot of other venues that are going to continue to keep you updated on COVID happenings, to include LER, that has COVID webinars frequently as well.
Yeah.
The person who's with us from Argentina says they went back into lockdown. It's impossible to get access to vaccines. I know folks who live in places that have had broad access to vaccines, like India. Some parts of India have also seen huge resurgences and crippling numbers. And so our heart goes out to you. We're holding space for you today if you're tuning in from a place where this thing is nowhere near over. And so we don't want to minimize what your experiences are today, as Nikki has said. We just want to kind of close the chapter for us, talking about it with any consistency, if you will, here.
Yeah.
So where are we today? Well, in the United States, 39.5% of American adults are vaccinated. We want to know what that looks like in practice. We've seen a lot of chats, a lot of threads on social media with folks saying, should I be making families mask when I go into their home? Should I be masking myself if they tell me it makes them uncomfortable? What's okay? What's the right thing to do? I'll share a little anecdote from my life from this week. I've been taking the kids to the dentist since we got here. It's probably been, I got a lot of kids, a lot of dental needs. So we've been a lot of times in the last year. And this past Monday or Tuesday was the first time we've gone into the dentist's office and there were no more clear plastic shields. There was no more temperature checking when we arrived. And there were people in the waiting room that were unmasked. And I was like, what's happening? What's going on here? And they were like, oh, we got rid of all that stuff. It became really hard for us as a practice, they said, to start to kind of manage patients who wanted to be masked and those who didn't, and those who were insulted by each other for whatever reason. And so we just decided to take down all the things. We're not going to hold you to anything. Masks are optional. We won't take your temperature. We won't have the shields up, but just we as a staff will wear masks. And that's the extent to which we will protect. We will do any COVID regulations. And I was like, I was not ready. I was not ready for all these changes.
I needed an email. I needed an email or a text message. I just needed something to let me know when I walk in here, and I'll be like, oh.
What's happening?
It's like this feeling of, I can't even explain to you, because we were sitting outside at a restaurant, outside seating, very far away from everyone else, and I didn't have my mask on because I was eating, and I walked up to the door to go pay the check early because we had to go, and I walked in, I didn't have my mask on. I flushed and like tears start coming down my face. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. She's like, no, it's fine. It's lived. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not okay. I just breathe your air. And it's just like something, I don't know, like now that has become my norm, and I'm more anxious than a lot of my family and friends, where I actually went inside of a restaurant for the first time last week, and it took a lot of drinks to like keep me in my seat. And that's just being transparent. Because the anxiety was just so high being in a restaurant.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine being in a person's space of like you're a patient of, I'm still masking with my patients. I would say my patients never really masked to begin with. In the shelter, they did not.
I did not know that.
They're teens, and I mean, they just didn't. They like the mask will be over their chin most of the time. I'm like, can you pull the mask up? I don't have a mask, Nurse Nikki, or things like that. But in a private home, they always mask. And so and they always say, I'm vaccinated. I'm back. Like people put their hands up. They're like, I'm vaccinated. And I'm like, that's okay. I'm still gonna wear this mask. So.
Yeah, So the dentist threw me. I wasn't sure, but since the staff was all masked and they were, we went in the middle of a school day, so there weren't very many patients at the pediatric dentist office.
Yes.
There weren't very many patients. I went ahead with the cleanings, but I was like, I could have used an email. I could have used a heads up that things were shifting in a way. And I could tell there was some tension with the staff between one another about whether this was a comfortable move to make. Because as I was saying, like, ooh, I would have liked to know this in advance. I could see them like eyes darting, they were
like we talked about this at the staff meeting. Didn't know
evasive. Nobody want. Oh, so did you see the beautiful day we're having? I'm like, no, but I'm talking about the things you stopped doing. Bring it back.
Did you do a focus group? Did you poll your patients?
Well, they probably did. Shout out to the other folks who've commented that you're in Florida. You get this. They probably did a focus group, and the findings were take away all the things because we don't need the things here. So that's just the state of where we are. We have, though, I've been thankful that a couple of folks who have come over to do work at our house this week, they have done we're vaccinated, it's okay, at the door as soon as we open the door. I don't know if they're telling the truth or not. So we still wear our masks because who knows?
Right. Exactly. My mother's had the same issue with the security man coming over, and he just walked right in with no mask on. And she's like, I'm sorry, where's your mask? She said, oh, Governor Abbott got rid of that, because my mom is in Texas. And she was like, oh, Governor Abbott ain't running nothing in here, baby. Where's your mask? He don't run this.
Yeah.
This ain't Governor Abbott's house.
The dentist was like, all offices in the state are no longer mandating. And I was like, oh,
really?
all of them?
Okay. You talk to every
so I
single
can't
one.
even be mad and go to another dentist. This is what it is.
With all that
all
being
right.
what are your practices, and how have your practices changed? And this is really for y'all to give your input. As you've heard ours, I'm still masking. I still wear N95 too. I'm not switching over to, or the KN95. I'm not switching over to the fabric. I still wear that. I still, glove when I need to glove. The distance thing is not as much, because I just can't see. First of all, I can't wear my glasses with my mask. And then I'm over here trying to be 6 feet away, and then 3 feet away. I'm like, ma'am, I just need to get a little bit closer to you to see the things. But for sure, washing the hands, always. We've been washing our hands.
I hope so.
But I never, I hope so. But a lot of places have asked me, Nurse Nikki, do I still need to do the temperature checks? Do I still need to do the Lysol? You weren't doing Lysol before. You should have been doing Lysol the whole time.
I think the temperature checks is a really interesting one, because that was never a great indicator whether one had COVID.
Never.
Right?
Never.
It was never. It was just something to make us all feel good, I think, because folks were absolutely walking around asymptomatic, spreading it with not a hint of fever. But I think these are great questions to ask. Someone has already asked us a question, and we can start there, Nikki.
Yes.
It's about, would you talk about the practice of having families signing a liability waiver? I want to start there, because I have seen different lactation consultants handle it differently. I think consistently, I've been looking at a lot of my colleagues' websites recently, and consistently I'm seeing banners that say, I'm practicing all COVID-19 guidelines, CDC guidelines. I'm not doing home visits, or if I do, these are the things that need to be met. The guidelines need to be met. So I've seen that pretty consistently, that folks have added that to their website and not taken it off yet. You have something like that on yours, I think, Nikki.
Oh, I do.
I'm not sure.
I don't actually use my website, but I do make sure that it's on social media. A lot of my patients don't look at my website, but all of my patients look at social media. So I do have it on there. Like, these are the things that I'm going to do when I come into your home. We still have those protocols in place. Like, I need all this documentation signed ahead of time, because we're not doing all of that and the exchanging of stuff. Because I used to let them use my iPad and they could just do the intake and stuff. We're not doing all that. So, and we're still like using Lysol. I'm still using your baby's blanket when we're in there. I'm not bringing any of my stuff. My stuff is very minimal when I come into the space.
Same.
So yeah, I'm keeping all of that. Like none of that really bothers me at all. And like the little extra stuff, I'm keeping all that. Now, liability waivers, I have not had them sign a liability waiver. We do have a phone call before time. I know a lot of people were doing extra phone calls, like a COVID symptoms check. My assistant does it that morning, and just ask them all things. And of course, they're like, no, no, no. And then we start sending the CDC COVID check, where it's a link, and they have to complete the link and take and send it to us. And then that didn't work anymore. So and I do understand that my population is a little different than most people's. Most people's population. They're very transient folks. So mine's a little bit harder.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with the liability waiver. I think if it in a sense says um, I am not liable, is it saying that the practitioner is not liable? Should the family
How do you want this liability
who
waiver to
did?
look
Yeah, I
to the
wonder.
person that asked the question? Is it saying that the family, you coming into the space that doesn't hold the practitioner liable if the family does gets COVID symptoms, or is it vice versa? Like if the person doesn't, mask, is it an issue of wearing a mask? I would like some clarification on that.
But I think my sense overall is whatever suits you as a practitioner, you get to decide. You get to
Yeah.
decide going into people's homes what your level of comfort is, or them coming into your office. You get to decide if they need to wear a mask. You get to, you know what I mean? Even if you're going into their home, you can
Mm-hmm.
decide, I'm not going to be able to take care of families who won't do these things. And so as long
Yep.
as it's stated up front. Now, some of the things I've seen is folks agree to it up front, and you show them and they're like, oh, you meant that? Like, I really have to wear the mask?
Yeah.
Yes, I mean that. And you can be clearer about that, and really, but you have to be firm, I think, because folks are going to try and push the limits. Folks are going to try, and there absolutely is there is a chance that business will be impacted, because as things continue to open up, folks are expecting for services to come back in person. And if you are saying, I'm still not yet comfortable with that, I'm only going to do virtual unless there's a complication that I cannot work out virtually, we'll at least start virtually. That's what
Mm-hmm.
many of us are doing. If they're not comfortable with that, then there's an opportunity that you're going to lose some business by sticking to your guns on this. And you have to really consider the cost of these decisions, to you personally and professionally. And for me, it's worth it. But I understand having to make some other decisions for yourself. Got other
Absolutely.
questions?
But mainly family
Oh,
not holding practitioner liable. Oh, okay. I got you. That makes sense.
yeah, I understand. I understand a liability waiver so that the family doesn't hold you liable. But I think there's
Mm-hmm.
also a responsibility with it that you've still got to mask. You still got to do the things, even if they
Mm-hmm.
won't hold you liable. You can choose not to. I'm sorry, you don't
And
have
I've
to, but I
right.
would.
I've even seen some practitioners get the vaccine based on the fact that they're like, I work with families. I work with new families and babies. And I know a lot of my families did not feel or don't feel comfortable getting the
Yeah,
vaccine or whatever, but I'm going to get myself vaccinated because of my profession. And that's a huge decision to make, for your job. And I understand the vaccine is a personal, absolutely 100%
absolutely.
personal thing, personal choice. But so yeah, that's a conversation that needs to be had, but it also just needs to be in black and white as well. Like put it out there before anyone gets your services. They already know your stance on it. And it clears up a lot of gray area, because they're like, I wonder if she's vaccinated. I wonder if she does this. And a lot of my clients know I work with a large population of homeless folks. And then I have private clients as well. They have to know that, but I will change. Like, and that's why I put it out there. Like I'm trying to be as clean as possible, but I do serve two starkly different populations that have different risks.
Yeah, I think it's super important to not only state what you require of the families before, make it plain before the consultation, but also what it is you are going to do. These are the things
Mhm.
I commit to doing to keep us safe. And these are the things I require for you to keep me safe and the other infants and families I'm going to see after you. And make it very clear. I think that folks understand that and they get that, even if it takes you a while, even if it's not, you may say, I'm not going to consider shifting this until 2022. If you feel that way, if you know that already, go ahead and put that out there, make it plain, and then they can decide if they want to, engage with you
Yes.
in this manner. We've got a
Sure.
long question. Want me to read it here? Let's see. Audience member, you say, I've had several people asking me lately about Pfizer and Moderna vaccine impacting supply, milk supply. Has this been studied or discussed? I've seen elsewhere that there's been anecdotal reporting of long-term and short-term impacts on supply. I don't want to be dismissive. Curious your input. Nikki, you want to start?
I have not heard of any of my families having any, and I'm not, either way, I have not heard of families having an impact on supply as related. And it could be around, and this is just my own thought process, it could be around like, did they have side effects? Did the parent have side effects of the vaccine? Were they not feeling well? And because of that, their supply was impacted? Or was it directly related to the vaccine? And I don't know if anyone truly knows that. Um, so I personally haven't, none of my patients have come back and said, oh, my supply dipped. If anything, they're like, I just nursed more during that time because I wasn't feeling the greatest, and my child just noticed that something was different. So they just nursed more.
Yeah, I think that's been my experience as well. I've not heard that anecdotally. I've heard similar, though, claims around reproductive health um, that are not well documented. But we've heard of folks having heavier periods, and there's been some thought around that being the body flushing through some of the response to the vaccines. And then certainly with the swelling of lymph nodes in the armpits and around, if you have any accessory mammary tissue care like I tend to, you may notice some swelling in these areas. And some of it seems a little bit confusing between if it's your armpit or that tissue.
Mm-hmm.
And things may seem a little bit different, a little enlarged, a little bit sore for a few days post-vaccine. Some of the feedback I've gotten, but I haven't heard or seen any differences in supply. I do believe I saw someplace differences in color of milk for parents who
Mm-hmm.
were
I did see
exclusively
that.
pumping. Yeah, and so we know the milk content changes. We know there's probably some direct connection there with a person being vaccinated and their milk experiencing some change, but not supply. And so if I hear from a parent that there's a concern about that, I can say definitively, I haven't seen any studies on that. But I do interface with a lot of nursing people, a lot of lactating people, and here is what I've seen in my experiences with them. So far, I've not seen a consistent um, diminished supply, short or long term, in anyone that I've been supporting, and that's a really accurate statement for me to make. And until you see otherwise, I think you can use that course of response.
Yeah, a lot of this is we're going to be just taking that anecdotal and not necessarily using it as evidence, but just using it as this is what we've seen, this is what we've heard. There's no evidence as of yet of what's going on, and saying if we find anything else, then we'll let you know. This is a situation where there is no the. I don't know if they're expecting you to have the definitive answer, because to be honest, none of us, I don't think, are epidemiologists, so we we just don't know.
I'm certainly not.
I
Certainly
am
not.
not.
All right. While Angela's looking to see if there's any more questions, Nikki, what else do we want to talk about with the people? Allergy
um,
season. Forgive us. I'm coughing too today.
sorry.
Yeah.
I got it. I got it. So I'm checking in with okay. So we just want to see where y'all are with this. Like we're trying to end this. How is it in your spaces? I don't know. I can't actually see the chat at all.
Yeah, no, we're just waiting.
about
We're
the
just stand
COVID.
by.
How are you advising clients? I know we have a lot of clients asking you about the vaccine. Does anyone have any amazing resources that they've been using? Because I think it's great that if we could just, hone in on some really good evidence-based resources to use, that'll make I think that really uplifts our profession if we could all use similar evidence-based resources. What is everyone using? I would like to share that vaccinefinder.gov, if anyone is looking for a vaccine, they can go there and look, and they have the 3 vaccines listed there. They can put in their zip code and they can find a vaccine. As we know, the vaccine is now available. The Pfizer is now available for anyone ages as low as 12. So I know a lot of folks are, or at least in my family, are getting our preteens vaccinated in the next week as summer starts. So I'm interested to hear about how people are handling that.
Yep. So I think that there's a lot of towing the line that's still happening between what we're comfortable with and how we can best serve the communities that we are called to take care of. And we get if you're not sure yet. And while you're sharing your questions with us, we'll continue to share, kind of what our experiences have been. But we want to look ahead. So if we're pivoting forward, if we're getting away from the topic of, at least in the United States, being under intense COVID pressure, and pivoting forward to what happens after, with full caution, I guess, that there could be a resurgence. If only 39.5% of American adults are vaccinated, we very well could see additional waves of this thing. So we're not saying we're completely out of it. So how do we shift our focus? How do we shift the way that we do our work? Are y'all staying virtual? Are how much of your work will now be back in person? Those of you who have started back in person, when did you do that? And what is that looking like today?
I would say, and I think people knew this about me ahead of time, that I was very resistant to virtual because I'm a in-person learner, not in their space like hands-on. It's just that I want to be there because there's so many things I can relate better. I'm a full body practitioner. I use all of my gestures and everything, and you can't get that full experience virtually. But I have become more relaxed with it, and it does it. And I think families have also, but you will get that. And I think we experienced it at the beginning of COVID. And as people started to get back in there, families like, this is not working. I've even had providers contact me. They're like, she tried the virtual twice. She's not getting it. Somebody needs to go to her house.
Yeah.
So are we having those conversations around, are we still having those conversations or putting those plans in place where we're seeing the parent within the first 2 weeks, we'll go and do a home visit like the first 2 weeks, and then we'll do virtual after that. So I am pretty open to that. I really like virtual up until I'll go see them. I think my thing is 3 months. I'll see them up until age 3 months in the home, and then after that we're gonna do virtual. And I'm okay with that. I'm good with
That's
it.
one way to approach it. So you're not going to see toddler parents.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So one of our audience members is asking the question about resources for families, giving information to families, like whether it's safe to get the vaccine if nursing. I think that this may be a really great task for one of us in the field. If you watched our last episode with Jada Metcalf, talking about being a digital LC, I think there are great opportunities for you to educate your communities, and you can just get the latest information from CDC or World Health Organization or whatever your county is saying, and condense that into a cute little list of to-dos or not to-dos for the families in your community. Make that a digital flyer, share it broadly for free or not, your business. You never really want to do, but I think that would be incredibly resourceful, and it is more relevant to your families if you approach this from what makes sense to them locally. So LER could crank something out at a national level, right, or global level. This is what internationally the standards are. This is what we're is being said of families. But if you, as a lactation consultant in your city, could craft together a resource list, or a list of protocols, safety measures for families to take, or just factual information that would make them feel better about having an infant right now at the at this stage in a pandemic, but also tie in local information, local resources, local standards of practice. What is your county saying that should be done at this point? Makes it all the more valuable to them because it speaks directly to what they need, right? I wish somebody had given me a bulleted thing that said, hey, all dentist offices are gonna.
Like make something for the providers, because clearly the providers out here winging it.
We are.
They out here
We
just
are.
like, you know what, today we gonna take this thing down.
Yeah.
We just put up the thermometer. They are winging it. So maybe pulling that information, just like we pull information about, storage guidelines, milk storage guidelines, and all that kind of stuff, because for whatever reason they don't have access to that same stuff. We can pull this information and say these are the guidelines for doctor's office and precautions that we should probably still take in still consider, but also what should you be telling breastfeeding families as well about the vaccine and things like that, because they may not know. They may like, oh, it's totally fine. Oh, you shouldn't do that until 6 months. They've been nursing for 6 months. Who said? Why'd you pick that number?
Yeah.
So to just to give them some, like a toolkit, post COVID toolkit for pediatricians. You can have that title and everything.
That could be so valuable, folks. I'm thinking that, yeah, I think our practitioners are looking, non-lactation focused practitioners
Mhm.
are looking for ways that they can guide their families, OBs, peds, ways they can guide their families on safely initiating breastfeeding, maintaining breastfeeding, how they can support them in breastfeeding, but also, dispelling some of the myths about breastfeeding and vaccines, or breastfeeding and COVID. I think there's an opportunity here. And again, we are, LER and Nikki can make infographics all day. And we may
All day.
tackle one of these, but I'm
Yeah.
seeing a really fantastic opportunity here for you all to do this at the local level and get together the information that makes the most sense for the families around you. And
Right.
the providers around you who can use this information as well. And then it's really easy to go back into Canva or whatever you made it in and update it when things change.
Mm-hmm.
I put out version 37, whatever. You just have it always available and up to date. And again, if you hone in on what the sources are for the best information, who you trust, and then just share that information. I'm loving the American, I'm going to mess it up, Family Practitioners or Association, whatever that, yeah, AAFP maybe.
Yeah.
I'm loving their guidance. It's been so pro-parent, pro-breastfeeding from the beginning and continues to be. They have some really great information available. They maybe aren't as confident about everybody not masking, even if you're vaccinated. They're uh, erring on the side of caution, especially as it relates to children and the, thank you, AAFP. Thank you, Angela, for
Mhm.
confirming, especially on the side of protecting children who do still have a risk of contracting COVID and rare, albeit rare, still have a risk of getting a severe case. And so there's an opportunity here. There's an opportunity here to make sure that
Yep.
you are sharing. And one of my dear colleagues who sits on the USBC board with me is an MD and IBCLC and sits on the guiding or governing body of the AAFP. And so they are being informed, their policies are being informed by lactation knowledgeable providers, and you can't beat that. So
And you can go a step further, and as hospitals start to lift guidelines and things like that, you can post about the visitation for the hospitals and the support for the hospitals on your social media page. Like, oh, this hospital, this is their new policy. This hospital, as of this day, and just have your followers know that information, because they're kind of in the dark. Let's say you just did a prenatal breastfeeding class. That's something that they really want to know. So having that information available is going to be really, really helpful. And Angela was texting us and saying that prenatal education, it has exploded. Prenatal lactation education has exploded.
true.
Everyone has a prenatal prep, a latch prep, a latch assist, all of it. And I'm loving all of it because we know the evidence shows us all day that you have a greater chance of extending your journey if you have that prenatal education and prenatal support. So I am loving all of the prenatal education. Y'all can keep it going and cater it for your space, cater it for your community and your culture, and your helping your families.
I love that. I actually met up this past week with local IBCLCs. We were looking at building solutions around the fact that our hospitals have not gone back to offering classes, and so there's no prenatal breastfeeding class. There's no childbirth education class. Those are still shut down. And so how can we as IBCLCs in the community help to meet the need? And we talked about coming together in some sort of free or low cost space and offering the class in person to a small number of families, socially distanced and masked, but still offering a prenatal breastfeeding course, or other types of courses, or seeing how we can do this virtually for families who aren't comfortable coming out. And I respect a pregnant person's desire to maybe stay away, stay home as much as possible. And so those are fantastic avenues. If your hospitals are not offering these things yet, you can, one, keep families abreast of when they do. You can be the, let me dial in and check what Nurse Nikki is saying about the hospital now, what's available, because the hospitals aren't communicating as well as they could in many places.
Right.
And you can also create solutions that meet the need. And absolutely, prenatal classes virtually are a boon right now. No matter what you charge, if it's a 1 hour class or 3, and I've seen both. 3 is a long time on Zoom, but there's a lot to say. There's a lot to say in prenatal breastfeeding. I tend to do, for what it's worth to you all, I tend to do like a 60-minute ask me anything, especially with first-time parents who they got all the questions. They don't want to sit through the slides. They want to get right to, so can I breastfeed? What does it look like? How do I? What's the latch? How do I know they get enough? They got their questions already. We're talking about a digital savvy parents. The average age of parents in this country are very much, millennials, and very much digitally savvy. And so they've already done Google searches. They already have at their fingertips a lot of information that you typically would have on your slides, quite frankly.
Right.
And so the Ask Me Anything approach has been really good. They enjoy just having my full attention for an hour, and they can ask me all the things. And of course, I got some basics I want to make sure we cover, so you walk away knowing these few things. But it's an easy way for me to make income, but also be available and help to allay some of the concerns of new families. That was free. You can have that idea.
Yeah. I do like 5 slides, like latch, position, poop, belly size.
Yeah. You're not doing the 3-hour classes? Okay.
Oh, no. Man, my attention span is not 3 hours. There lies the problem. Like, but then like we're really going into like breast history. I love learning about breast history, and like if you had anything going on with your breast, or things like that. And I've even had some parents say like, well, just look at my breast. Let me put the camera down and doing a breast assessment on Zoom, which makes it interesting. So the prenatal lactation classes have been golden virtually, because when we really thought about it, did we really have to be in person just for a prenatal? It wasn't really necessary. So this has been really nice.
I like to give cookies. I did on occasion bake a fresh batch of cookies. That was a benefit of in-person classes, because there is I don't know, I learned in one of my very early breastfeeding education classes that when talking about the difference between human milk and the formula products, there's a cool way to illustrate that in fresh baked cookies versus a package from the store. And so that was a fun thing. I got Chips Ahoy and I got, hot out the oven. They're both cookies, similar ingredients, and so they see the two side by side. That was a fun thing. So I can't do that virtually, but I can do something very similar. You can do all sorts of fun things, and have your little props. Nikki has the best props.
Oh, do you have it?
I do have it. I do. I dropped the breast. Hang on. Okay.
This
Nikki,
is my favorite prop. I'm blanking on the name of the person. Look at that. And the tongue comes out. Oh my gosh.
Awesome. It's awesome.
Right. and then you have the breast, and then it creates like this nice, oh, look at that. Oh, snap. Look, oh, like it blew my mind when I
Did you see that?
did that. It's
Listen,
just amazing. Like the fact that this has totally changed my virtual game, because I could not, like, I'm sitting there with a breast and like trying to do it with my mouth, and the the partner is like, what the, who
what's
is this
happening right now?
that you got? Like she
What are
got
you
her whole
watching?
mouth. And then I have like cotton mouth because the knit would be on my lips. It just wasn't a good look. But now that I have this, and they like look, they're like, oh, I get it. And then I'll have a baby, and then we'll do paste bottle feed. Like I can do all of that. And it really is. Now that I have props, like that's probably what I just needed the whole time. I feel my confidence has gone up with props. So.
Props are where it's at. They really are. You can show all the, you know, the little charts we have that show how much milk is on each day of life, the egg, the apricot, the walnut, the blueberry,
Mm-hmm.
all that. You can have all those things, you know, in front of you. And it really just drives home the visual in a way even better than, you know, if you just handed that out at a class, right? So you get the
Right.
opportunity to that way. Safely. So we know we've had multiple shows about the virtues of virtual and telehealth, and so you all know the benefits of them. But we're talking about that today in terms of, or in light of, how you can make sure that you are doing what works for you as a practitioner,
Mm-hmm.
what works for the families that you're supporting. And if remaining virtual is the answer to that, feel empowered to do that. Feel like you can do that, but do it effectively as well. We got more thoughts?
Yeah, I was trying to pull up the thing to share because everyone wants to know where we got it from.
Oh, I got it from
um,
Nikki.
I
So we have our medical director in LER has researched a little bit on the question regarding supply, and she's affirming what we talked about already. There's been some chatter, no official studies. We haven't seen any, but there's possibly a theory out there related to inflammation and lymphedema. I was so close to getting it. I was so close to saying it right on the first
lymphadenopathy. Hmm?
that on the first time, on the same side as the vaccination, leading to decreased supply. So oftentimes people get shot on the left. They're seeing some of that inflammation and inflamed lymph nodes on the left, and that leads to an appearance of decreased supply, but it does rebound. It's all temporary based on those who've been reporting it. And there's also been reports of increased supply. Some are suggesting it has to do with increased endorphins related to just the relief of no longer being afraid of COVID. Um, Someone says our WIC program partners with our local hospital and has been offering prenatal breastfeeding classes to our WIC families via Zoom since August 2020. Again, this is an opportunity space that WIC jumped in on, very smart WIC, to help close the gap that the hospitals left open in the community. And
Yeah.
so many times people think that, well, I don't qualify for WIC, so maybe I can't go to their stuff. And so there's an opportunity there as well to educate the community if they are able to attend, if it's open to anyone, to make sure that that's a thing. Or you private practitioners, go ahead and start your own to close that gap. That's another way.
Where it's at. That's where it's
All
at.
right. Are you going to tell us where to get the crocheted?
I put it in the. Did
Oh,
I?
sweet.
No. Did I? In the chat that I can put it in, and
Yeah.
then Nope, it's not here.
Uh-huh.
I sent it to Angela. Angela,
It
did
will
you
be
get
shared. It will be shared widely then. Great.
it?
Thank you. Someone is appreciative of our research on the spot. Hey, we try to deliver. Okay, we try to deliver. If we don't know what we're talking about, we try to make sure we get some facts to you before we end this. So when
Right.
you
Yeah, or we just gonna
when
tell you.
we don't know,
I don't know what you're talking about.
we know that. But anything else? Is there anything else you all need as we round out the end of our COVID series? Anything else you all want to ask, want to know, want us to dig into finding answers to? And how are you feeling about moving forward? What is your practice going to look like
Yes.
moving forward? Let us know. We want to know. We have a
Mine is
little bit of a
now going to
quiet
be
group.
a comfortable space of telehealth and in person.
A
But
blend.
then, yeah, it's going to be a hybrid.
Yeah. I'm going to continue telehealth. I'm not, how, I am fully vaccinated. And so I feel safe and comfortable going out into my community now, which is a fantastic shift from how I felt a
Hmm.
year ago here in Florida. However, I don't feel 100% safe going into the homes of folks in my community because there is such wide variation of understanding of COVID
Hmm.
and belief in COVID. Um, Yesterday, I saw a statistic where most counties in Florida are right at the national level. So we're talking about 38 to 40, 41% vaccinated of adults. And for me, that's not yet a comfortable risk for me to take on. And so I'm going to continue to do um, virtual as much as I can. Some of the organizations that I volunteer in have moved to encouraging folks to go ahead and meet in person if they're outside and socially distanced. I'll make those choices as they come up, but I'm making the decisions that I am because I am protecting the children in my home who are not yet able to be vaccinated, and protecting the children in the homes, other homes I would potentially be visiting. And so for me, I've done the risk assessment and decided
Hmm.
virtual is best for me at this time. And because we have talked about over the last year so many fantastic ways to maintain our income from home, from our
Right.
offices, without going out into the community, I've been able to work through some of the lost revenue
Hmm.
by offering virtual services, the digital services, and all the other things that we talked through. And so it's not as much of a hit, but I recognize that's not the case for everyone. And some of you are back out there doing it. And we certainly support and respect your grind, your hustle,
Yes.
and your commitment to your communities.
I would like to shout out New Orleans, Louisiana. We are usually at the bottom of every list, and we understand that we may have started COVID during Mardi Gras last year. However, I would like to report that we are 43% vaccinated in New Orleans. We are above the national average. Thank you. Thank you. We're still number one in chlamydia and gonorrhea, but that's okay.
There are
We
so
have
so many ways that you all outpace the nation that are not good. I think you should just sit in the win,
sit in
revel in that.
being above national average. Thank you. Thank you.
Yay, New Orleans, way
So
to
yeah,
do it.
Angela was saying how, digital and virtual is the way to go. So I do respect that some folks, they want to stay at home, and hey, it works. It works. But we also want to recognize that we could have been doing a lot of this, virtually anyway, because of all the provisions that people have made, and revisions to policies, and folks getting, Wi-Fi and all these things. So hopefully we've noticed some barriers, like the blinders have been off. COVID took off the blinders of a lot of barriers that people experience, and that we can have better healthcare in general. Um, Moving forward.
Think that's a great way to end this. Thank you. That's very insightful. I would agree. Many of the happenings over the last year, here and abroad, have shined a light on disparities and discrepancies in access to care and support and all sorts of things. And it continues to, innovative solutions continue to arise out
Absolutely.
of
Hmm.
the trauma and the what's become glaringly obvious in terms of access to care. And so we embrace the innovative solutions. We love the idea of continuing to figure out new and innovative ways to support families in ways that make us all safer, and make sure that we're all taken care of. We will see you again, not in June. We're taking the entire month of June off. Can you tell we're excited? We are.
Yes.
We're going to miss y'all. We are. But we will be back on July 7th, and that will be our quarterly How to Become an IBCLC, but with the spin. We're talking about becoming IBCLC. We're talking about the credential and the profession, but this time we're talking about add-on credentials, or talking about mixing credentials. What does it look like to be an IBCLC plus? Whether that's occupational therapy or speech language pathology or psychologist or pharmacist. We're seeing some really, really cool mixing of credentials, and offering families really unique support and care that wasn't available before. And so we want to talk about that. We want to talk about cool ways to pair your credential if you have passions in other areas.
Yes.
Nikki, you got anything else?
I do not, but I want everyone to stay sane and stay healthy. Angela does have something she needs to tell us.
Thank you, ladies, so much. What I really want to do is just to send you gratitude from the LER community, those on staff, those who have been wonderful participants in these webinars that will live forever online, YouTube and everything else. I'm very grateful to you for providing us the guidance, the knowledge, your perspective, your passion, your authenticity, and your compassion for us during the heat of the pandemic. You have rearranged your lives and what you do and how you do it in order to support us. So thank you both very much for being such a shining light during this pandemic.
Oh, thank you.
She got us. She got us. That we didn't know that was coming.
Got you.
All right.
Nope, did
This is
not.
what it looks like when Black women blush. Okay. Thank you, LER. It's our pleasure and our honor and joy. Thank you so much.
We do appreciate that.
All right, now that's it for real. Stay safe, stay sane. To the best of your ability, stay sane. Wait,
right.
Best of your ability, stay sane. Definitely do safe and sanitize part.
All right, y'all. See you in July.
Take care.
Bye.